I'd like to ask us all, what was your favourite planet that you visited? And I'd like to ask Michael, even though you were gone for that 1 year, how do you think, what kind of job do you reckon Corin did on replacing Daniel for that 1 year? I always like to know what you thought about him.
Sorry, what was
That was such a diplomatic way of saying, what happened the year you were gone?
No, that's not what I was saying. I was just wondering what you... Joe, stop staring at man.
I just wanted to tell you what he did that year. That's just dying to tell you.
I just wanted to know what he thought about what Corin brought to the show while Daniel was gone. You know, like Jonas Quinn. What he thought about that character, if he melded with the group. That's all I wanted to know. And what was your favourite planet you visited?
The favorite planet I visited was Earth. Yeah, me too. Planet Vancouver. No, we used to joke that in the first season we went to for an episode called Brief Candle. That was at the beach in the summertime in Vancouver, and so and it was kind of like a Logan's Run type episode where everybody stays young, and so they had all these little really pretty girls there. So we used to joke that was my favorite planet.
Planet of the Lake.
Yeah, so that one. Like this it is.
Yeah, Earth. Yeah, that's it. Basically, Earth. Pluto.
Pluto's nice. It's cheap.
Cold.
She's mad at me. I'm sorry.
And
I want to tell you what Michael did that year.
Joe will tell you afterwards what I did.
I met him on the street. Actually, was throwing him coins. I go, wait, you're Michael Shanks. What are you doing?
No, you have to say you used to be Michael Shanks.
Oh yeah,
You used to be Michael Shanks. I haven't seen a lot of the season 6 episodes. I did think it was a little convenient, not Corin's fault, not a little convenient that Jonas Quinn was the fast study who could pick up and read all of Daniel's stuff and therefore be able to easily step into the place that Daniel took. I thought that was a little convenient, but I thought Corin did a good job. I mean, it was a tough position to be in, and Rick is a unique animal, and he's not the easiest to get along with or work with. So there's a certain finesse that one needs to have and learn. And so I didn't envy Corin doing that, because I knew anybody stepping into that position would kind of have a lot working against them. So I think based on that, I think he did a good job. I think that I can't speak for the experience because I never really worked with him a lot, but I thought he did a good job.
Look, he's alive.
The reason I asked that question is because I always felt sorry for him, because I think there was like a lot of not fans here. I mean, but there was like some people being really nasty about him because they were like big Daniel Jackson fans, and I always felt sorry about it. Wasn't his fault, you know, and everything, and everyone was just being. So it was nice to hear what your thoughts were on that.
Well, when it comes to fandom,
Michael wrote those letters.
When it comes to fandom, it's a different experience. I mean, one shouldn't wade too deeply into the waters if one's acting on the show, especially in the time of doing the job, because especially if there are things that are, you know, negative that are out there, because it can you can get kind of, it's kind of like an athlete hearing all the boos, but hearing it on a nightly basis when they go on the internet. That it makes it difficult to do your job, so you have to kind of tune it out at the time. So hopefully he was able to do that. Yes, like I said, fandom can be an interesting place, and there's negativity and certain opinions everywhere if you really go searching for it.
It was just crazy that certain fans could do something like that, and because I heard stuff about like Brad Wright getting death threats and stuff like that. I mean, What do you think about these people doing that? I mean, it's terrible, but thankfully it's
Well, that's the-
this is all pre.
Michael also.
Yeah, I was going to say, thank God we didn't have social media at that time because, I get threats on a regular basis from social media from different yahoos. So it's just for your own political or beliefs or otherwise. So it's, I don't think it's that much different. It's just that it's because it's about a television show, one should, probably chill a little bit more. Yeah.
Thank you, friends, for that question. Thanks, guys.
Poor Corin. Should have him. Corin, where are you?
So, lady here.
Sorry. So, when you had the chance to direct Double Jeopardy, how did you go about your mindset of building that, getting into the flow of doing that as well as acting?
I suppose this question is for me.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, when I directed,
Yeah, when David directed Double Jeopardy. When I directed, I asked in the second season the head of MGM Television if I could get the opportunity to direct eventually. So I'd kind of gone to school from season 2 till season 4 on set. So I would be in the editing suites or I'd be shadowing directors, and I kind of went through this process of learning based on what I'd been asked to do, because John Symes had been the head of Paramount, and all the actors that you know that were on Star Trek shows that are now directors, like Jonathan Frakes and whatnot, he kind of had said the same thing to them. He said, well, you're part of the best film school ever, which is this set, so go learn it, go show us that you are excited about it and want to have the opportunity and prove it to us, and we'll give you the opportunity. And so that was the time. It didn't go over so well with the producers, though, and that's because they liked the actors being at their beck and call, and they liked it being a team show. And so for me to direct that episode, they had to write me out of basically that episode and another one so I could do both jobs. Because I had prep, and we prepped the episode before, and I had that episode. So that didn't go over too well with the producers, which is why you never saw it again up until season 7. It was a long process of learning, and the problem with that episode is I'd been promised Prodigy, or an episode like Prodigy, which was just kind of a character-based episode. And then I ended up getting a Rob Cooper action extravaganza, which I didn't look at as my strong suit. And I actually remember going to Rob Cooper and saying, "Can you write this down, like downsize this?" Because we had us, our robot doubles, all having combat scenes all over. It was kind of like a director's nightmare, especially when you're one of the actors and you're having to jump in and out of the thing. And you have 2 Richard Dean Andersons having a fight with each other at the same time. So it was a bit of a tough, as a first outing, was a bit of a tough go for a director. So I wasn't terribly, I guess, happy with it and with the end product. I still look back and I go, geez, I could have done that differently. I do that a lot anyway, but with that specific one, I sort of now, having a little more experience directing, would go back and do other things. But
trial by fire.
yeah, it was a tough one.
So when you directed in Saving Hope, you had like a big emotional scene when you were directing.
Right.
Like, how hard was that to direct it as well as bring that emotion?
The good part about Saving Hope, when I directed for Saving Hope, was that most of the time I wasn't heavily involved in the episode. The character wasn't heavily involved. When I had the last episode I directed in the 5th season of Saving Hope, there was heavy emotional stuff, and that was a bit of a trip because I remember it was late in the shoot, late in the day, and I had that heavy scene, and we had worked with a cat earlier that day.
Yeah.
Now, anyone in the film business that's ever worked
with animals.
You don't work with animals, but cats. How many people have cats here? Do they listen to you? No. Do they do anything you say? Yes. Exactly. So trying to direct a cat is kind of like trying to direct Joe Flanagan.
Yeah. But I'm less smart than a cat.
So we'd had the cat had put us behind by about 3 hours because it refused to do anything it was supposed to do, even though this guy, we had a cat wrangler who had brought in this very specific film cat who would obey instruction. It didn't. It's a lie.
What did the cat have to do?
The cat simply had to run from, it just had to run. That's all it had to do, run across the floor. And what happened was I was trying to track it on a shot, and it got near the dolly. The dolly is the thing on wheels that the camera sort of goes on. And it got near the dolly track. It hadn't hurt itself, but it scared the shit out of the cat. So to get it to run across that floor again was damn near impossible. So that set us back by 2 or 3 hours. So by the time I got to some emotional scene I had later, I'm trusting the DP to watch the stuff and tell me if it's okay. I'm having to get in the space to do the scene, and I'm having to make sure that the rest of the story, I'm working with another actor, and I'm gonna make sure the rest of the story resonates, all tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. So that turned into that is a bit of a problem to have to be heavy and direct yourself unless you have it clearly mapped out, and so that was tough. But other than that, I really enjoyed directing on Saving Hope because it was character-based. It was more actor stuff, so I enjoyed directing there a bit more.
Anyone else with any questions? There's some hands around. Where's the? We've got a microphone somewhere. Oh, there we go. There's a big wave. Hello, up there.
Hi. It's probably more of a question for Michael, but happy if the others have got perspective on it as well. I was just wondering, sometimes watching SG1, it kind of felt like maybe not all of Richard's lines were scripted. Sometimes it kind of felt a bit more ad-libbed. So the question is, was there any ad-lib? But if it was all scripted, were the writers writing for the character of Jack, or were they writing to match Richard's characteristics?
Jack, Daniel.
That one's all you, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah. Rick stuck to a lot of the script in the first season and didn't have the best of times, and then just went off the rails and started doing him. And it started to like everybody was, because Rick's a naturally very funny guy. It started to take on its life, and we would have these read-throughs, and Rick would basically bulldoze the writers into sort of doing it his way until they finally relented and started writing the character exactly who he is, who Rick is. Which unfortunately left the rest of us to sort of go, well, this doesn't make any sense. So we would do this in rehearsal sometimes too, where he'd get gone home the night before, read the script, change the lines, come in, and we're doing a whole kind of new scene, but only his lines are different. Yours are still the same on the page, so you'd have to improvise and keep up. And so that's kind of how stuff was written. And eventually what happened actually over time, the writers that were with us for a long period of time just started to write Rick into the script. So sometimes scenes that seem like he's improvising is just because someone nailed it, and this is exactly what he would say anyway. So Brad was very good at that. He wrote a lot of things that people asked if that was an improv, and we'd go, no, that was scripted. But yes, Rick tended to, some of the outtakes, if we ever had them, we don't. Rick didn't like the outtakes living. But if you could have seen some of the outtakes of the scenes that we tried to do or tried to shoot and that didn't make the cut, it would have been quite something.
I can shed a little light on Rick's state of mind, by the way, because when I did the first episode, he and I are like, we don't even act much together in this whole thing, but I'm flying back from LA to Vancouver every weekend, and so was he. And I'm sitting next to him a couple times, and I'd be like, so Rick, got any advice? And he, I remember this, he just looks at me and goes, advice about what? And I was like, oh, I don't know, about leading a, gigantic franchise that's internationally recognized. And he'd be like, no. All right, so then like 30 minutes goes by, and then he turns to me and he says, you know the gobbledygook? You don't do the gobbledygook. I go, what's the gobbledygook? You know, all that scientific mumbo-jumbo
Stuff I would do.
Crap. He goes, if you do it well, they'll keep giving it to you. And I was like, thank you, wise man. So I did. I went about sabotaging anything that was complicated and technical. And I was like, yeah, and then slowly Hewlett's discourse gets bigger and bigger. And it all went to David Hewlett. All of it. So I actually have great, I have a lot of gratitude toward Rick. I think he saved me a lot of pain and heartache. So there you go.
Great, thank you.
We got another question. I'm not sure whether Mike's eyes are any mics. Oh, there's just over there. Sorry.
Hi, we're here for my mum's 60th birthday, and it'd be amazing if you could say happy birthday to her.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Mom!
Yeah. And you got the Princess Leia cut to that. Love it. Yes. Love it.
Any questions over there? There's some more down the front here as well. But is there any up the top? I've lost track of our... Oh, there we go. It's these lights over that way somewhere. And then we'll get to down here as well.
Hi, I was just wondering what everybody's favourite episode or storyline was for their characters, and why.
So, the favorite storyline?
Or episode for your character.
Oh, episode.
I mentioned earlier I liked Vegas because I got to play a slightly different character, and I grew up with Rockford Files, and I liked Rockford, and I was talking to Robert Cooper, and I said we should make a character like Rockford, and so we kind of did, and we got the same kind of car he had, and it was a lot of fun, and ironically, it was the last thing we ever shot, even though it was the second to last episode. It was the last thing I ever shot on set at Stargate, and it was shot in Vegas. We spent a lot of money on the show, and I just remember we're doing a shot with a couple of the guys from Sopranos. We're playing poker, and the sun is coming up, which is, it's going to kill us. So, we get done with the scene, the sun comes up, and they go, oh, that's a wrap. So bizarre. And it's like, that's it. That's the end of the show. Wow. Yeah, so it was like, going home from Vegas, as they say. So it was a weird feeling, yeah.
I think, trying to remember, it's a long time ago. I like the technical aspect of it, like the actual, because it was a real training in terms of what you need to do to be able to do that. So I remember actually the episode we did together, the Adrift, where we're suspended in those astronaut outfits. Do you remember that one? Yeah, that was tough. But the way they did that, though, we had us suspended on cranes basically, and they overcrank the camera so like it goes faster, so it mimics the sort of the movements in space, the slow movements in space, and that kind of aspect of filmmaking was fascinating to me. It was also Martin Wood shooting that episode, and he says when they hit the wall, I want them to really hit the wall. So these guys in these dollies are just getting ready to just bam into the wall. Of course, in slow motion looks great because you're.
And they always bring like an expert we had an expert who actually owned these spacesuits, the real spacesuits.
Yeah, and they were
they weigh a ton.
Yeah.
They weigh a ton.
And they were
they're hot as all
Remember that?
Gola. And I kept saying, is there a reason it's so hot? He goes, these are the real thing. I go, that's awesome, but can they not be so hot? And they eventually we graduated to different suits where they had the fluid control.
Yeah,
the guy
cooling
would
vest?
shoot cold and hot water into a skin-tight suit you were wearing. And that was a big relief.
Yeah, and it would go to a cooler with ice and come back into you. Or those ones where you had the fans in your Contagion or those things. And where they,
What's weird about that is we had spacesuits too, and we didn't have any cooling system.
You got the air conditioner?
Interesting, because I think on the tag it said NASA, courtesy of SG.
I heard that they built it off the plans they got off the internet. Yeah. I remember one thing about it.
After our pilot, we screened it, and Rick came, and the theater was full. People were like, "Yay!" The first thing he came up, I thought he was going to say, "Ah, cool, great." He goes, "We don't get that kind of production value." And I was like, "What?"
Much rivalry. One of the details I remember about a spacesuit is that you have like switches on your on your chest, and the labels on the switches were printed backwards, and you have a little mirror on the top of your wrist, and so you could read the switches and stuff. So that kind of detail on the suits was pretty cool. That's the production value we had on Atlantis.
We didn't get switches either.
We had a gravity-free studio too. Did you?
No. We had to deal with gravity. One of the byproducts, I will tell this story, it leads into the favorite episode. One of my favorite episodes to do was Prometheus Unbound. One of the reasons why it was my favorite is actually Atlantis related, is because one of the ways we got around our budget being cut was that they would shoot 2 episodes at a time, which is why, if you notice in season 8, there's a lot of episodes that only feature one character prominently. They were bottle shows, because we'd take an existing set. Basically, a writer would get a task of, okay, we've only got the Prometheus, write a show just on the Prometheus. And so we'd get an episode for this standing set because it was inexpensive. So the big episode, or the bigger episode, would be SG-1 off somewhere with a little less whoever, and the bottle show would be just based around one of the SG-1 characters. And that happened to be Prometheus Unbound. So we'd have 2 separate units running, and I don't know how this is cheaper, but I guess it's cheaper. We'd have 2 separate units running at the same time, one shooting what essentially the main episode, and another one shooting what we called the second unit episode. And Prometheus Unbound was a second unit episode. Now, where's the benefit of that? It was because there was less adult supervision. So all the producers were over watching the main episode, and everybody was paying attention to that, and we got to be little brats. So on Prometheus Unbound, a lot of the funner stuff was kind of stuff that we made up on the day. Kicks to the balls, or fire extinguishers to the balls, and the whole fight sequence with Claudia and myself, we sort of mapped out ourselves, and a little more hiccuping than normal. Like Andy Makita, who's a friend of mine who was directing it, we just kind of did what we wanted to do, and that's where it ended up, where the show ended up, because they never would have let us get away with being so campy and goofy had we been supervised by the producers. And of course, by the time we were done and it's too late, they saw it and went, "This is really funny, you guys." And we went, "Yeah, we know." So that gave birth, obviously, to the Vala character and her involvement in the future. So that's what was one of my favorite ones, all thanks to Stargate Atlantis.
You're welcome.
We aim to get
The bottle shows are sometimes the funnest ones to do because of the focus on character.
Yeah.
There's some questions down here as well, I believe.
So just a personal one for each of you. If you hadn't have gotten into acting, where do you think your life would have taken you? What's your passions? And I have another question for you, Joe, separately as well.
I might be in jail. But then again, maybe not. I studied history, and I worked in a lot of different jobs. I worked in a bank. I worked in a brokerage firm. I worked in politics. I actually worked in the White House. Yeah. And so, where most people start and they build up, I did the opposite. I started at the top. I worked my way down. Now I'm doing Stargate. No, so I don't know. It was an interesting evolution of things. But I think that I would probably either be doing something maybe like architecture, design, or I'd be a history teacher maybe. Boy, that would be really annoying, but I might like that, who knows?
Yeah, he picked my answer. Yeah, architecture or design is probably what I do, or geography. I'm really into map making and all that kind of stuff.
Before I transferred, when I was in university, before I transferred into the BFA acting program, I was in business. I was going to go into marketing and advertising. That's where I was headed. Even though I'd done acting my whole life, it just wasn't, I didn't think it was a viable career option. And then I was kind of...
and is it?
No. There was such a great program at that university I was at that they kind of, I'd done a couple plays while I was there that I was kind of inspired to switch out and pursue it full time. So I was going to head into, I was going to be be a guy who makes ads on TV. That's kind of where I wanted to go.
Takes a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That child crying is my inner child. I should have done something else.
So the last question is on behalf of Flanny Fangs, which was set up by my sister. So Joe, you've got a necklace with something on it, and we would like to know what is that. What's the meaning? Is it a whale fin?
It's a whale's tail, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it is. I had a good friend who he had liver cancer, and he lived in my guest house for the last year and a half of his life, and died there. And he had one, and he gave one to me, and I just kind of always kept it on. So it actually means something. So. But that's what it is, and I'm also too lazy to take it off.
I think we might maybe got time for one last quick question over there, and then we'll have to wrap things up.
Hi folks, with such iconic roles in the Stargate series, have any of you ever kept hold of any particular prop or item from any of the shows? That
Are you asking if we're thieves?
No, let's just say souvenir hunters.
Well, and one of the things on the lattice, we had these little ear communicator devices, which started off sticking out to here, and then they got a little shorter and shorter. And I'd always forget that I was wearing one. I'd take the stuff out, because you just don't, you take your stuff off, and you want to go home as fast as possible. And I lived pretty close to where the studio was, the Bridge Studio, so I would ride my bike, just up the hill and kind of thing. So I'd be riding my bike, and I had my little communicator device on. I've got like a shoebox full of them. I got that. I got one of my. Oh yeah. The other thing is the blue jersey that I wore for 6 years or 7. Whatever. How long were we on? 5 years. 5. Okay.
But he wore it for 6 years.
Yeah, exactly. And then, like it's the same one. And at the beginning of year 5, they said you got to come in for a wardrobe fitting. I'm like, oh, okay, really? Okay. I came in and it was the same blue jersey. It's like, yeah, it'll fit. So I have that, and my chair back.
I took everything. Our last day, I think our last day of filming, I'd never sort of taken anything from Stargate at all, but I always like to take something on the last day of shooting something. Like, for Saving Hope, I took my entire surgery outfit home, shoes and all. I took, for Stargate, same thing. Our last night of filming was the night of going up the ramp and, in the end of season 10. I mean, we did the movies later, but this was, sort of they were going to take down a lot of the sets that we had. So it was kind of our feeling of last night. And I just got in my car with my full outfit on and drove home. And before we did, we went up to the top of the gate room to sort of peer in and had a little wistful moment staring out of the gate, because that's kind of how Christopher and Amanda and myself had started when they were constructing the gate room in our first. Before our pilot, we'd gone up there and looked and said, this is going to be incredible, what a journey. And so here we were 10 years later, sort of, bookending it with the same experience of going up there and saying goodbye to it. So I then, of course, walked over to Hammond's office and took his red phone and left in my full outfit. So I still have it, all of it.
I took the air conditioning.
And it all comes full circle. What a great way to end it all. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise, please, for Michael, for David.
Thank you.
Also some noise for the wonderful Claire.